Hey everyone, welcome to the May 11th, 2020 edition of Socially Distanced Safety. For this week's COVID-19 update, we're going to focus on proper wear and use of masks on Andersen construction projects. Meanwhile, our safety talk for the week is going to focus on heat-related illnesses. Hopefully it doesn't come as a surprise to anyone that cloth masks are now required to be worn 100% of the time on any Andersen construction project. This is being done in order to stay in compliance with the governor's phase 1 order for reopening construction projects. As we've rolled out this program over the last week, we have seen some great participation, and for that we are truly grateful and want to thank every individual who has participated. A few notes that have come up from a few teams we wanted to make sure and share with everyone so that we can all collectively learn together. Number one, anytime you're using your mask, putting it on, taking it off, or adjusting it, it's important to make sure that you have disinfected your hands prior to making that contact. This will help prevent any viral spreading from your hands to your mask or your mask to your hands, and should be done frequently in addition to any time that you are touching your mask. Masks must be worn completely covering your mouth and your nose while working or even walking on site. We've seen a few times in which individuals might be pulling their mask down below their nose. Most often that's going to result in a coaching reminder at first to ask you to correct that, put your mask back where it should properly be. But it should be noted as well that any frequent violations can result in disciplinary action up to and including removal from Andersen construction projects. Number three, if you need to remove your mask for any adjustment or to eat, drink, smoke, or maybe even at the end of the day, we did want to make sure that we had the information right, so we clarified with Labor and Industries, and they have confirmed to us that as long as we first ensure the area around us is clear from other people, make sure you're not taking your mask off around anyone else, you may then remove your mask, making sure that it's not coming into contact with any of your clothes, anything like that, and then do whatever you're needing to do, whether that's again eating, drinking, whatever that might be, making sure that you're keeping that safe distance 6 feet away from everyone else. Once you are finished with whatever you're needing to do that necessitated removing your mask, you may then replace it before you resume walking or resume working on site. Anytime any movement is being made, the mask needs to be worn 100% of the time. Also, another important note is if you're using cloth masks, make sure to wash it frequently. The idea with these is that they should be able to be laundered like any other part of your clothing, and hopefully that's getting washed in there frequently. And lastly, never share masks. If you are missing your mask, if yours becomes unserviceable for some reason, contact your supervisor, see if they have another one that they can get for you. Companies should be providing those, and companies, if they don't have one, make sure they're reaching out to Andersen Construction. We are more than happy to provide one to supplement any masks that are missing at the time, and will help beyond that companies acquire additional masks if they're having a hard time locating them. As we transition from COVID over to our safety toolbox talk, we now shift our focus to heat-related illnesses. It's an important topic that we're talking about this week for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it is a requirement by the state of Washington that all projects that work outdoors and have workers that may be exposed to warmer temperatures train workers or brief workers in the early part of the year by May to make sure that everybody gets this information. In addition, it's important for us right now so that we can make sure everybody is prepared for some of the things that we're starting to see as the weather forecast continues to improve and we really get to enjoy some of these nicer days. The first question that we ask that might sound a little bit silly is what is hot weather? It's important for everybody to understand that there is a definition of that. When the state is looking at hot weather, the standard answer would be any temperature over 89 degrees. But that doesn't really paint the whole picture for us, as additional factors can make that temperature actually drop even more before we're working in a condition that we might consider hot. Some additional factors that we would want to pay special attention to currently are if workers are required to wear extra clothing, if they're not acclimatized to the warmer weather, and if there are cool mornings. All of these can increase the effects that heat might have on individuals. The cool mornings might sound a little bit strange, but the idea there being workers might come to work with a little bit more bundled up, maybe an extra layer on. And as that temperature increases throughout the day, they may not register that right away and they may leave that on a little bit longer. It's going to heat the body up and maybe get the dehydration going a little bit faster. All of these conditions are currently in effect, and it's something that we need to make sure that we're paying attention to. So we ask that everybody please make note of what we're talking about here, talk with your teams, and make sure you have a site-specific hydration plan so that we can eliminate the possibility of any heat-related illnesses on our projects. As workers are on site, it's important that they understand what to look out for when we're discussing heat-related illnesses. The first topic that we wanted to discuss would be signs and symptoms of early heat-related illnesses. These, in a lot of ways, should be considered the last line of defense of your body giving you an idea that something is going on before a real health concern starts to arrive. So if you're working on site and you start sweating, you're experiencing cramps, maybe you're having a heat rash, dry mouth, potentially dizziness, or even a dark yellow urine, these would all be warning signs that dehydration might be starting to take place, and you need to take immediate action in order to stave off more serious effects down the road. It's important to remember that if you're thirsty, you're already behind. You need to be hydrating to a point where your body is not getting depleted enough that it is needing additional water. So you should be building in hydration breaks as part of your normal work days. Again, especially now as we're seeing warmer temperatures and as we're wearing additional clothing that might restrict our body's ability to self-cool. The next component we want to look at would be if the body's dehydration were to continue down the path towards a medical condition. The next step would be heat exhaustion. Some of these signs and symptoms are going to be similar to what we've seen before, but they're just going to be more pronounced, more severe, and we're going to see a few other indicators there along with them. The next step would be heat exhaustion, and that is when you're starting to experience sweating, potentially dizziness or lightheadedness, nausea, potentially vomiting. The person's skin would be cool, pale, and clammy. So you're still going to be sweating. The body is still working to try to cool itself down. The pulse is going to be rapid but very weak as the body is laboring hard to continue to keep the body cool. And you're going to potentially start to see an altered mental status. Potentially the individual is going to be more irritable than normal or just acting in a different way than you're normally used to seeing them. The treatment for this should be to immediately move this individual to a cool, shaded area. Encourage them to drink water. A coworker should stay with them and monitor their condition. Do not leave this individual alone. And this should be immediately reported to your supervisor. This is something that does need to be documented, and we need to make sure it's followed up on, even if everything seems to turn out okay at the time. And as a reminder at the bottom, if the condition worsens in any way or is not improving within 30 minutes, then the worker should be immediately brought to medical treatment. The last phase of heat-related illness is heat stroke. And it should be understood first and foremost that this is a full-blown medical emergency if someone is experiencing any of these signs and symptoms, and they should immediately be brought to medical attention. Some signs of this would be they stop sweating. Essentially what's happening here is the body is out of options. It's tried to use all the extra liquid it could to put that on the skin and cool the body down, and it has not been successful. So now the body is starting to shut down. So the skin is going to be hot and dry. Again, an altered mental status, potentially irritability. The person's core temperature is most likely going to be above 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe nausea and vomiting still being experienced. potential throbbing headache, and very often this will lead to a loss of consciousness eventually. Um, Again, it should be considered a medical emergency. 911 should be utilized, and the worker should be immediately transported to a hospital. As a note, workers that lose consciousness should not be given anything to eat or drink. Don't try to pour anything down their throat to help them out. The best thing that you can do is pour or kind of mist water over the top of them and fan that off to allow the body to cool down on its own. Again, do not put anything in the person's mouth or try to cool them down in any other way, as that can create additional issues. Now that we've covered the signs and symptoms and medical impacts of heat illnesses, we wanted to make sure and provide some good tips for how to avoid being in any of those situations. Number one, it's important to make sure that you give your body time to acclimate. As we're getting into these warmer temperatures, everyone should remember it can take up to 2 weeks for your body to fully adapt to these warmer temperatures, and even longer now that we again are seeing these COVID required masks and additional PPE that might be required. Hydration. It should always be noted that water is the best tool to help prevent heat-related illnesses. Sports drinks like Gatorades, Powerade, whatever you might prefer, do a good job of helping replenish some electrolytes, but they should be used sparingly. A good rule of thumb would be for every 3 bottles of water you drink, doing 1 bottle of Gatorade. Any additional drinks, caffeinated drinks like energy drinks, soda, anything like that should be used very sparingly during these periods of time, as they will not help with hydration and they can lead to dehydration. A proper diet should be maintained. It's important to remember when you're sweating, you're losing more than just water. So if you're only putting water back in your system, that can lead to additional health impacts, and your body will basically have the same result as if you had done nothing. It's important to make sure you're eating throughout the day, replacing your electrolytes, replacing the salt and other vital nutrients that you are losing when you're sweating, and make sure that you're maintaining that good diet throughout the day. If you are on any medications, taking any kind of supplements for workout, whatever that might be, on a healthy regimen of caffeine or maybe utilizing tobacco, it's important to understand that these can have significant impacts on your body's ability to remain hydrated. You should consult your doctor, talk to your team members if you're feeling any symptoms from anything that you might be using, and make sure to understand that you are now at an increased risk of dehydration if you are using anything that has been shown to have a potential impact on your body's ability to remain hydrated. The last note on here for tips, it's important to make sure we're looking out for one another. We discussed altered mental status, unconsciousness before. Oftentimes, as the signs and symptoms are getting more severe, individuals may not be able to identify this in themselves, or they may not be able to ask for help. We need to make sure that we're maintaining an account of one another. We're speaking up if somebody seems that their mental status may be altered, and we're helping get them to help as quick as possible. We need to make sure we're looking out for one another, communicating if somebody had an issue yesterday. It's important to remember it will not be just one day for them to totally get rehydrated again. It can take a matter of minutes to get dehydrated, and it can take multiple weeks to get your body fully rehydrated again. If you were not hydrating well on the weekends, it's going to take some time to make sure that you are getting your body fully re-equipped with the water and the electrolytes it needs. So make sure you're paying attention as the week begins and looking out for one another throughout the course of the year. This concludes our COVID-19 update as well as our safety toolbox talk for the week. Both topics covered today should be addressed thoroughly by your project team and your site-specific safety plan. If you have any questions about anything that was covered here, would like additional resources or information, or would like to know more about what your project team is doing, please make sure to reach out to your supervisor or anyone from Andersen Construction, and they should be more than happy to help you get whatever information you're needing. Lastly, I do want to make sure that we really do address all of the additional incredible work everyone is doing to put all these new plans into place, working with us to help us find our way through this difficult time and making sure that we're keeping everyone safe in the process. We are genuinely grateful for everything you're all doing. We literally could not do this without you, and we need your input. We need your feedback. Whether it's comments on our socially distanced safety talks or any other information, please make sure you're reaching out. The more candid feedback we can get, the better off we're going to be. Thank you all very much and have a great week.